8:25 on the phone from Tokyo is Nick Smith, Japan strategist at CLSA. Morning, Nick.
Good morning, Jim.
Now, another place that's seeing stimulus is Japan, of course. Fumio Kishida's unveiled a $380 billion stimulus package. It includes 100,000 yen in cash handouts to households with children under the age of 18. What do you make of this package? Is it going to work? Is it going to boost consumption and the economy?
I think on balance it's a pretty positive development, isn't it? 10.4% of GDP, so a thumping big stimulus package. In many ways, it feels like the beginning of the Abenomics time when Abe came in. The rest of the world had been sort of driving around in taxis, throwing money out of the window with big stimulus packages. Japan hadn't. And then, just as theirs are running out of steam, Japan started with a big stimulus package itself. In that case, it was monetary rather than fiscal. But here, we've got a huge policy just as it's slowing down in the rest of the world. I think that markets ought to like that.
It seems a bit of an odd way to go about a stimulus package, though, that it's sort of saying that the people who most need help, the people maybe who have suffered the most from the pandemic, is really dependent upon whether you have children or not. That doesn't seem to be necessarily the right gauge, is it? It seems to be a pretty blunt sort of stimulus, really, that's going to almost everyone.
Well, there's I mean, if you're going to do a stimulus package as large as that, then it's going to be pretty broad-based. I think the newspapers, the media have focused a lot on the 100,000 yen to under 18-year-olds and a lot less to the 100,000 yen to the low-income families. And that's just politics. I mean, there's statistics, there's common sense, and then there's politics. But yes, it's broad across the board. I think you can see Abe's influence in all of that. So there was a time when we were talking about 30 trillion yen, and then there was a whisper that it might be 40, and then we came out with the biggest ever. And I think there's an understanding. I mean, obviously part of it is knowing that there's an upper house election in July next year. So the main thing is, yes, at some stage we've got to think about the country's balance sheet, but in the meantime we've got elections to win. I think it's good timing and good news.
Japan's sort of got the opposite problem from Europe and certainly the US, where they've got inflation and don't want it. Japan hasn't got inflation and does want some. Will this help generate the inflation that the BOJ has been trying to bring about for so long? And will that happen because people will go and spend this money, or will they save it, as we've seen in the past? Japanese, when they've had these types of stimulus packages, tend to save most of it.
Well, I think it's in the nature of a certain miserable economist running around saying, well, it'll all be saved and we'll be doomed anyway. But surely the point about giving money to under 18-year-olds and to low-income families is that they're far, far more likely to spend it. I mean, low-income families, they don't have the choice. They have to go out and spend it. And under 18-year-olds, well, when I was 18, I most certainly would have, and I'm sure you would too.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see how this works. Something else that's going on there that maybe you could tell us a little bit about, the case of Tokyo Kikai. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, a tiny company, 15 billion yen company, so probably sort of $150 million or so. But what was interesting about it was that a speculator group, so the head of the group, a Chinese guy who'd been blacklisted in his own country, come to Japan. What was really interesting about it is that from first showing up on large shareholding report, within 8 days, he'd taken another 25% of the company. And so, really, if systems were working efficiently, then the stock exchange should have raised an alarm. They should have told the Financial Services Agency, and it should have been dealt with at that point. But instead of that, the company has to end up talking about a poison pill. And what was really odd is by that stage, the speculator group was 40% shareholding. And so to have a poison pill, they had to put it to shareholders, and they excluded the top shareholder from the voting.
So he didn't have his votes counted, basically.
Absolutely dreadful. Sorry?
He didn't have his votes counted, even though he was the 40%. He owned 40% of the shares. When he tried to vote, they basically weren't counted.
Yes, I mean, the optics are absolutely dreadful. But like I say, it should have been dealt with much before that. In any other country, then this would have caused problems that had been dealt with. But the way that it was dealt with really doesn't look good.
Why did he want a 40% stake in this company? If it's just a tiny company, I don't even know what it does. What was the attraction for him of buying 40% of this company?
Well, yes, I mean, it makes the printing presses for newspapers, which is a dying business. So it had negative free cash flow in 16 of the last 17 years, but it had a stash of cash. I mean, obviously a dwindling stash of cash, but I think that's what he was after. So it was clear asset stripping, which was another sort of point against them. That the courts don't like that kind of asset stripping. And they do tend to rule against them. But the main point was the speed and opacity of the attempted takeover.
Okay, well, very interesting story. Thank you for telling us about that. That's Nick Smith, Japan strategist at CLSA in Tokyo.